If this is the first time you've tried to learn a foreign language by watching films and TV shows, you may be wondering if you should be watching with subtitles on or off. And if subtitles are on, should they be subtitles in your target language or subtitles in your native language? If you're just starting out, there's a strong temptation to lean on subtitles in your native language to give your brain some context as to what's going on. But leaning on native language subtitles like this can do more harm than good to your language learning efforts. Let's take a look at a quick example. Fremde aus fernen Ländern, langjährige Freunde. Ihr seid hier gerufen worden, damit wir auf die Bedrohung Mordors reagieren. Mittelerde steht am Rande der Vernichtung. Niemand kann dem entgehen. Hier müsst euch verbunden oder ihr geht unter. Jedes Volk ist diesem Schicksal ausgeliefert, auf Gedeih und Verderb. Hole den Ring heraus, Frodo. Okay, be honest. Were you listening to the German dialogue or were you reading the English subtitles? It's perfectly natural for your brain to focus on the most familiar element that it can see or hear. But the problem here is that by reading the English subtitles, your brain pays less attention to the spoken dialogue. A similar problem can occur if you set the audio to English and the subtitles to German. Strangers from distant lands, friends of old. You've been summoned here to answer the threat of Mordor. Middle-earth stands upon the brink of destruction. None can escape it. You will unite, or you will fall. Each race is bound to this fate, this one doom. Bring forth the ring, Frodo. In that example, you may have noticed that your brain was focused on what it was hearing, because that was more familiar than what you were reading. Now, it is possible to try to focus on both. And if you did that just now, you may have noticed an instance or two where the subtitle translation didn't exactly match what was being said in English. But in cases where the two don't agree, again, your brain will tend to focus on whichever one is easier to understand, and the moment passes without coming to an understanding as to why they're different and how the translation could have been made more accurate. So, you may come to the conclusion that it's better to force your brain to receive the story entirely in German. German audio, German subtitles. This gives your brain no English to latch onto, and therefore, at least in theory, it will force you to try a bit harder to understand what's going on. Let's try this out. Ich nehme den Ring. Ich bringe den Ring nach Mordor, obwohl ich den Weg nicht weiß. Ich werde dir helfen, diese Bürde zu tragen, Frodo Beutlin. Sollte ich dich durch mein Leben oder meinen Tod schützen können, werde ich es tun. Du hast mein Schwert. Und du hast meinen Bogen. Und meine Axt. Du bestimmst unser aller Schicksal, kleiner Mann. Und wenn dies denn der Wille des Rates ist, so wird Gondor sich anschließen. Did you notice that your brain picked up maybe a tiny bit more German than it might have if there had been English audio or English subtitles to lean on? If not, don't feel bad. The ability to follow German at full speed requires more advanced language skills, and it takes a while to get there. You may find at first that you just get a general impression of what's going on as opposed to understanding every single word of it, but that's okay. In fact, that's why it's beneficial to watch shows in German that you're already familiar with in English. Your brain already has the context of understanding what's happening in this scene between these characters, and so you can fill in the blanks, so to speak, with the details. Then, with repetition and practice, you'll find that you slowly start getting more and more of it. The most advanced technique is to turn the subtitles off entirely. This may seem overwhelmingly intimidating at first, but you may be surprised here and there, particularly with scenes that don't really need subtitles. Gondor hat keinen König. Gondor braucht keinen König. So what's the verdict here? What's the best approach for language learning? Well, not to be all wishy-washy, but the hard truth is that there is no single best answer here. It may depend on whether you're an auditory learner and learn best by hearing, or a visual learner and would learn better by reading. In fact, I'd encourage you to try all of the options we've discussed here to find what works best for you. My personal recommendation would be to try to graduate up through these options in terms of increasing difficulty. Think of the subtitles as being like training wheels on a bicycle. As soon as you are able to, and possibly even a bit before you feel confident in doing so, you should be looking to get rid of those training wheels and actually ride that bicycle. Option 4 here is like graduating up from a bicycle to a motorcycle. It'll feel incredibly fast and intimidating at first, but after a while, you're not going to remember how you were ever satisfied just riding around on a bicycle, so to speak. There's something immensely satisfying about getting to the point in your studies when you can actually understand spoken dialogue without relying on those subtitles. Yes, it'll take a long time to get there, and yes, it'll be very frustrating at times along the way, but you can get there. Through patience and repetition, you can definitely get there. Don't be afraid to hit that pause button and rewind a bit to listen to a particularly difficult passage again, and don't feel bad if you occasionally have to flip the language to English to remind yourself what the original dialogue was. It's a slow and painstaking process. When I first started trying this, it could take me up to 3 hours to watch a single half-hour episode of a television show because I was pausing to look stuff up after almost every line of dialogue. It's very, very frustrating, especially at first. But with patience, persistence, and repetition, it is possible to break through that frustration. So, subtitles on or off? Well, let's say on at first, but try not to rely on them longer than you absolutely need to. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you next time on Learn German from TV.